It's not good. Hello everyone, back for another comic ramble, which sadly this one needs to be a bit rushed as the next comic comes out a week after this one. So that means I can't sit on my stuff and take time to review this. Like usual, if I miss anything, get anything wrong, or just don't explain it well, then my apologies. Feel free to tell me in the comments once you've finished the video, and I may respond to some of them. Today we are going over issue 5 of the Murder Drones official comic by Glitch Productions and Onipress. This issue goes over episode 7 of the show, Mass Destruction, which also happens to be my favourite episode. As usual, these videos are not a replacement for reading the comic, these are my reviews and rambles on it. If you want to read the comic, you can go buy it at comic shops, Onipress's website, Neon Ichiban, or anywhere else that sells it. With that all out the way, let's get into the comic ramble. As usual, the cover looks great, the cover artist is doing a fantastic job, and like usual is one of the best things in the comics. We get a recap that tells us they are chasing Dull, who Tessa claims is undergoing a transformation due to the Solver. Alice gets a name drop, we get reminded 02 is Uzi's mother, and Uzi even says the Sentinels glitched out after one bit Tessa. Would have been great if the last comic actually explained and showed that. N is sad over V, and we move on to the starring page, which I never really mention, because it's a pointless page. But as we are near the end of all the comic issues, I will mention it here because I've ignored it until now. Also, you may notice the change in the art style. This issue has a different artist for some reason. It was not advertised or shown off much, but here they are, and the art is very different from the previous. Makes me wonder how the next issue will look, as the normal artist and this one will be working together for the last issue. The church and Nori's exorcism is shown. I will say the room does feel very empty and lifeless. The reveal of Mitchell being an intern is reduced to dialogue, so they don't waste pages trying to show it off. Nori breaks free, Mitchell runs off to go get Yiva, and in a Murder Drones comic classic, he even gets dialogue because, for some reason, the writer just adds dialogue to any scene that doesn't have it. The two run back to the church and find it all bloody and destroyed. He leaves Yiva outside, who is left grumpy, even out loud telling her to stay, instead of just closing the door like in the show. He finds Dr. Ridley, who tells him to shush, but is pulled away into the hole. Then possessed Nori comes out and takes the patch before throwing it into the intern's face, only for the video to be paused, and we see Nori is now a core watching the footage. That intro sucks. It removes everything that made the show version good. The art style itself is fine, but the art misses so much. The church feels empty and you don't get to see anything. The machine being used to keep Nori in place looks bad. A lever is pulled and she just falls. Mitchell running past the Sentinels is removed. Yiva's personality is gone since her few scenes and interactions have been reduced. Entering the church is changed. In the show, the Solver tries to hide what's going on by using holograms, while in the comic, it's just a church with oil stains, or black blood around the room. I'm not sure why they picked black and not red, maybe a censorship thing. Anyway, now Mitchell closing the door on Yiva feels wrong, as he tells her to stay and sees an empty bloody room and just goes in alone. He walks in, picks up the patch, then finds a hiding Dr. Ridley, who is pulled away, and just look at all of this. What do I even say? Some parts like Nori walking out of the hole look good, but everything else sucks, and the change of removing the Solver trying to hide that everything went wrong for the humans is a strange choice that I don't think plays off well, especially with how it's presented. Also, while we're here, has Mitchell been hitting the gym? Nori grabs the pickaxe and scuttles away. The transition of the trio arriving in the mines and N rushing to try get V back is gone. We see the end part with Uzi's eye bleeding and Tessa saying to watch it. There is a split rock in the background trying to show that N was throwing it. N tries comforting Uzi, but Tessa says enough and tells Uzi to sit and stay. Uzi is confused and N tries to explain. I don't like how all of this looks because the framing takes away so much from what the show had. In the show you can see Uzi freaking out, but here it just looks like she's standing there. The camera is far away instead of being close up, so we don't get to see those close-up shots of the characters' reactions. I also don't like the far away camera just looking at all three of them speak. N looks at Tessa mad as he speaks. When he says hurt Uzi, she panics and suddenly makes a null, which then also causes a large purple explosion, looking like she didn't even try to stop it. There is a rumble, we see N's scared face, Uzi's legs, then black. The cave-in looks poor. I know seeing Uzi's feet is trying to show that she's stepping back, but look at this, then look at the show. You can see Uzi tries to stop the null, N reaches out for her, but she chooses to step away. It is showing the characters and the split between them as Uzi doesn't trust N. But here in the comic, like usual, the way stuff is presented loses all the emotion and feel the show had. No, we didn't forget about these two. Thad is following Lizzie to the corpse fire, but then the gravity gets all weird. Thad gives a very comedic line that gave us all a good chuckle. There's a noise, and I can't tell if that's Jay's landing pod or if it's one of the legs. Either way, Jay shows up and Lizzie tells Thad this is what they're looking for. We cut back to N in the mines, who has his hand trapped under the rocks. He calls out for Uzi, but he's laughing. Then the next page shows Uzi, then immediately cuts back to N. What is that transition, and why did they even bother showing Uzi? It's trying to follow and do what the show did with showing Nori and some more context to everything as Uzi makes her way deeper into the mines. But here it feels pointless, especially because the comic only has a limited amount of space and pages. So I feel if you needed to cut one, half a page of Uzi leaning on a board that you can't even read because the text is so small and slightly cut off, may be one you want to cut. I'm on a laptop and I needed to heavily zoom in just to read this. Even then, it's still a bit difficult. The image has a reason to be there, but due to how it's been shown, the thing feels pointless and unusable. Before I zoomed in, I thought it would just be random lines or too blurry to read. Again, despite the comic being made to introduce new people to MD, it does do a horrible job at it, and feels almost impossible to understand. But maybe that's the point. It wants to be so bad that people go and watch the show, but that idea is stupid and would make everybody hate Glitch if that was the actual reason for these. I'd say that, but Glitch fans would probably move on and forget about it. It already feels like Glitch got away with no issues from these comics. The first few issues had a lot of people complaining, but Glitch simply never said anything and have basically ignored the comic's existence. A few days before the comic came out, they released a Murder Drone short. I won't say much in the short, but if you want me to make a video on it, then comment. I will say, the short is better than these comics, but also does feel like a possible beginning of the end for Murder Drones. Shorts are what people, including myself, wanted and suggested, so it's like once they do the shorts, which they can do a lot of and drag it out for a while, but after all the shorts are done, that does kind of sound like the end for any major Murder Drones content. It all depends on how Glitch wants to do the stuff and deal with the IP, but that's all a ramble for another day, which, again, if you want to see, just comment and I may do a video on the short. Back with N, he is cutting his arm off as the trauma ghost talks to him. It shows Maid V, who is smiling, so it comes across more pretending to be her than using her. It wraps its claw around his leg and pulls him into a hug with Sin, which causes N to have a flashback to Earth and while it's not as much as the show, it does give a nice quick look into the destruction. I think people could easily mistake this for somewhere other than Earth, but again, the art does look good here, and I like the panel. The Solver's access is denied as Uzi is N's admin. Sin says destroying Earth was fun, right? An added line which I assume is meant to push the fact that the flashback we just saw was Earth, so the audience doesn't mix it up with another place like I said they may. Sin pulls N deeper into the cave, and we cut to Uzi, who has arrived at the church. Collar in hand, she flies inside and begins to look through the computer, learning what happened to her mother that day. Back to N, he is screaming until saved by Nori, who gets him to run. Nori finds out N knows Uzi, but we cut to these idiots at the corpse spire. An explosion happens and Jay gets on her ship, which looks a bit small. She leaves and Khan shows up with Uzi's railgun. He then begins to rant about the drones and what they did. He tells Lizzie and Thad that according to his wife's closet, the planet is going to try eat them soon. For some reason, Khan loading Uzi's railgun is removed. Down in the mines, Tessa reaches the area the drones were kept in and causes it to self-destruct. She casually walks away, which, compared to the show, looks really boring. Dull shows up and asks for the patch, in Russian of course. The two begin to fight. Also, I feel this frame doesn't give the best idea that Dull had the cleaver. It looks like Tessa just pulled it out of nowhere. The two argue and talk about the patch. Tessa cuts Dull, causing her button to fly off, revealing the bleeding eye. Dull tries to fight back, but the fire goes out, and she breaks a rock before a scary face covers her screen. There is Russian text on the screen, but surprisingly it isn't translated. I will say, again, the presentation on some stuff is not the best. Like, I don't think the comic reader gets the idea the rock was being thrown at Dull. It looks like she just randomly breaks one, then instead of seeing something pounce at her, we just skip to a smiling face covering the screen as she glitches out. I feel some people could mistake this for something other than a face, but obviously I can't confirm that. As usual, it's just all a bit hard to tell through one image at a time compared to a video. I can see somebody who hasn't watched the show getting very confused at all of this. We see the end of the intro. Yiva shows up and uses her solver to throw the patch into Nori's face by misdirecting it. Possessed Nori pulls the patch out and throws it away. Mitchell leaves, shouting that he's an intern and this is his first day. Possessed Nori says Yiva can't help her, then creates a null, but Yiva says simple solution and uses the solver to cut Nori's arm off. I don't like the way this is shown, I don't like the added dialogue, and I don't like how they removed the patch somewhat working. In the show, Nori does regain some control and even holds out her arm so Yiva can take the limb off. But here in the comic, it looks like Nori stays possessed and the patch didn't really work. Nori tells the story to N, planet half exploded, humans died, even with Nori giving some sound effects. She woke up, brain scrambled enough to have a kid, and dramatic time jump to the present. That's the whole story. She even shows some drawings and a picture of Khan, which she pulls out of nowhere. The two talk and Nori asks if Uzi or Dull is trying to eat them. We cut back to Uzi with a solver symbol on her screen, then the TV breaks as Dull comes out of the hole and begins walking. In the show, the camera focuses on Dull and we see her stumble forward as her parts fall out and she slips on them, before hitting the floor, showing her final message, fights back. Here in the comic, she walks up to Uzi, who says her name. Dull is covered in oil, but at least her parts are still in her body, and her chest isn't ripped open. And hey, for once the comic translates Russian into English. The scene does just look worse than the show, and like I have said for everything else, it's bad. These scenes remove everything that made the original good. All the horror, build-up, tension, and emotion are gone. The result feels lifeless. I say sounding dead to the point where people think I have a rope set up in my room for after I'm done with these recordings. Tessa shows up and says it looks like Uzi has been busy. Back to Nori and N still steeped in exposition. N doesn't want to keep secrets from Uzi, while Nori doesn't want Uzi to know she's alive. In the end, N promises to wait until she's ready to tell Uzi herself, and Nori lets out a "bite me." In the church, Uzi is telling Tessa she didn't do this to Doll, but Tessa knocks her down and gets ready to kill her. However, N arrives, blade to Tessa's neck, and asks if she knew about the patch. Tessa ignores the question, so N cuts her head off, so her body and head fall to the floor, as N stands there with his claws out. Yeah, not the sword he just used. Within a page, it switches to what looks like his claws covered in oil. Also, a lot of those good parts are removed, and what remains is meh. I can only say so many times, it's a comic, they can't do and present stuff the same way. They try, but again, the show just looks better and the comic doesn't even get on level or close to it. N hurries to Uzi and comforts her. He gives her the patch as he comforts her, but she gets possessed and breaks it before growing a claw which she tries to use on N. But Nori shows up and stops her. The fight begins and it's reduced as everyone expected. It's not as visual and does look a bit boring, which is expected as it simply can't look as good. A lot of the good moments are reduced or removed, and again, writer, stop adding dialogue to scenes that don't need it. The idea the solver was trying to lead Uzi to her death, but N doesn't want to kill her, is there, but in comparison it looks bad. Uzi getting injured and even using the sword on herself is removed. Again, the fight just sucks compared to the show and removes so much. In the end, she uses the pickaxe to knock N to the floor and picks up Nori ready to eat her, until N calls out and reveals him and Uzi hang out. Nori says those things killed your mother, and the slap isn't shown, but instead the frame just shows Uzi falling back and shouting that this lady doesn't freaking own her, while N gets up in the background. Uzi throws Nori into the hole and shouts at N. He then reveals it was her mum. The two scream and hug. As they hug, Tessa's corpse stands up with the tendrils connected to it. She throws the helmet away and... what the fuck is this image? I think it's trying to do the little spin Sin does in the show, but... come on, this just looks fucking stupid and confusing. Who looked at this and went, yeah, looks alright? Come on. Look at it. What do you want me to say? But now we get the Sin reveal. Wow. Look, it's Sin, the big bad of the show. Finally, the big major reveal. And it even gives her famous line, "get snuck upon." Then she just fucks off and jumps down the hole. I'm not joking, that's the entire reveal. One page, and she just fucks off. I can't believe Glitch, Onipress, whoever worked on this, and the people who checked it, looked at all of this and went, yeah, that's good enough. Same problems as every other fucking sentence in these videos. Look at this. What is it? So Sin's reveal, a fantastic horror moment, beautiful reveal, one of the best scenes in the show, is dumbed down and looks stupid. They also remove Sin eating Doll, the camera doesn't show her face, and then she says get snuck upon before attacking Uzi and N before leaving, showing she is a huge threat, and again, showing the horror. Here in the comic, she shows up, we get a full body shot as she says her famous line and poses for the camera, then she just fucks off. I don't even know what to say. It's shit. Some tendrils grab Uzi and En, dragging them into the hole. Instead of Uzi stabbing her hand to hold the two up, and then using the solver to throw En to safety, and out of the church with the ship key, before falling into the hole, the comic actually has En be the one holding them up. It still has the same dialogue, and Uzi still uses the solver to get En to safety, now just letting herself fall with a smile, happy she saved En. That's actually a difference from the show, where Uzi is happy she saved En, but show Uzi has a bit more of a sad look and acceptance of what she assumes is her death, while the comic Uzi just seems happy that she saved En and is far more accepting of her fate. It's not a bad change, but again, sadly the show just does it better. Although, what is a big and questionable change is the ship key being gone. That's because the setup scenes of the worker drones getting ready to fight Jay is also gone. It was completely cut. If I had to guess, it's probably because lack of pages and it not being as important as other stuff. It sucks to lose the scene and may be a bit confusing for how En is going to get the ship in the next issue, but it isn't the worst loss, especially since the worker drone part of the scene doesn't really lead anywhere since the workers never actually get to fight Jay in episode 8. This could mean that a lot of their scenes from episode 8 may be cut, which, again, sucks, but at the same time could be a positive for the comic as they never have enough pages, so if something from the final needs to be removed, scenes of Thad, Lizzie and Khan versus Sparky isn't the worst idea. Again, sucks, but I would rather cut those scenes than make the big fight scene 1 or 2 pages. Will that be what happens? Probably not, but who knows. The final page shows Uzi opening her eyes to find herself in space. She looks at the hole in the planet, but here in the comic the hole takes up most of the frame, so it looks less like a hole in the planet and more like a glowing ball in space. With that, the comic ends. To be continued. Or should I say, to be solved.
Oh yes, get snack upon.
Like normal, it sucks. Moments removed, dumbed down, everything that makes it good is gone. Tension, horror, emotion, great visuals, and so on. It's all gone. It's the same stuff and complaints I and others have given since the first issue. And of course, it comes nowhere near being as good as the show. The story follows the same stuff with some slight changes, but again, parts are told and presented poorly to where it ends up just looking bad, becoming confusing, or losing all the feel the scene had. Go to any point and compare it to the show, you will see how dull the comic is. For the artist is different, and the art isn't bad. I will say, while yes there was some mistakes, there was a lot less than previous issues. Of course some parts look strange and there's a few errors, but again, for the most part, it looks good. I will say, some of the issues I have with the art, I think usually fall down to what I assume is the direction and instructions the artist is being given, which end up ruining the scene. Obviously there's some stuff to complain about, like Nori missing the thing in front of her eye, and even her having 4 legs instead of 3. Doll should have had her chest open like the show, and obviously there's some smaller stuff you can complain about, such as the screen on Uzi's chest should have been larger in some scenes, and there even should have been clothing under her hoodie. You get the point, there is stuff to complain about like usual, but for the most part, it's fine, and there is some pages I do like, even if some of them have mistakes. I would rate this comic like a 3 out of 10. Again, same problems every comic has had. Also, it's the second to last issue. That's a big thing to note. This is the big reveal episode for stuff, but due to the direction and how the scenes play out, it ruins it, and somehow does that for pretty much every scene. These big moments are reduced to nothing. Again, look at the scene reveal. What am I looking at? The first 2 comics you can make excuses for, like them still trying to find their footing and get used to everything. But this is the 6th overall issue. It's the second to last one. They are still making the same mistakes they were on the first. And again, every scene is worse, and not even one is better or on level with the show. These comics really are pointless and just feel like they were made so Glitch could expand into comics, make themselves and the IP look bigger, and fill out the space between the show ending and the beginning of the shorts. As usual, just go watch the show. These comics are nothing and feel like such a waste of time, resources, and the fans' money. Again, fans had to raise a Kickstarter, and they raised 1.8 million. 1.8 million for this. I know making stuff is really expensive and hard, but come on. Look at these. They're shit. I think that's pretty much everything. I'm sure I missed some stuff, especially since I need to rush this one a bit, since the next comic comes out a week after this comic releases. So I have not got long to work on this, unless they decide to push the next comic back. But hey, at least we're nearly done. Just remember when all the other YouTubers come back to review these comics, and how they all turned out. Remember who sat here and reviewed each fucking comic. Give me the views, the likes, the subscribers. Come on. I built this shit. Brick by brick. Me. I did. Also, thanks to all of you lot for watching the videos and actually wanting more. There will probably be like 1 to maybe 3 more MD comic videos. Again, comment your stuff. I do read them all and even respond to some of them. Like, subscribe, comment, all of that. It really does help. I have other videos, some good, some meh. Check them out if you're interested. As always, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you're having a good day. And in case I don't see you again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.